what does it mean for America's future?
Well, as you can see, there's a lot of really big generational differences these days in politics. So Gen Z is just a lot less connected to institutions, whether that's religion or government. And there's a tremendous amount of pessimism among young adults today. We usually think of young adults as being very optimistic and forward-looking. That is really not true today. More Gen Z young adults say that they don't have any hope for the world, that their expectations for their own lives are much lower.
So how much of that has been because they've been told not to have any hope, right? Because they've been told by one political party that they're all victims and racism is terrible in America, and another political party says that other political party is out to get you because you cling to your guns and religion.
I think there's a number of factors here. So what you're mentioning, political polarization, egged on by social media, absolutely in there, where you have the two sides hating each other, and then the angry content spreads faster on social media. We know that from lots of studies. There's another element here too, though, which is Gen Z is a lot more likely to be depressed than previous generations at the same age. And depression isn't just about emotions, it's also about cognition. It's about how you see the world. And when you're sad, when you're depressed, you see the world in a negative light. And
no, absolutely. But how much of that is the negative light because they're being told to see it in a negative light? How much of that is because the idea of personal responsibility is going by the wayside? The celebration of normalcy or of adequacy is now something that happens every day with participation trophies. How much of it is it that people are being held to so much lower standards, they don't have a reason to be inspired?
Well, I think that's been going on for quite a while, certainly since the 90s, and the millennials who grew up in that era in the 90s and the 2000s, when we had a lot of those same trends, were very optimistic, and they had very high expectations, and they weren't as pessimistic about the state of the world. So there's clearly something else going on that has divided these generations. And I think that level of depression and the rise of social media are two possible causes.
Okay, so understanding that, but fair to say, right, that each generation collectively has been more and more coddled, right? Things have gotten easier and easier. Just if you look at every generation has had it better. Is that part of the problem?
Well, it depends on how you define coddling. So if you think about things like how technology has made our lives easier and how parents are probably nicer to their kids now than they used to be, sure. But when you consider that average teen is spending a ton of time on social media, partially because nobody's getting together with their friends anymore in person, so they get depressed. This is not an easy time to live when it seems mandatory to be on social media, and then you go on there and it's all of this terrible content, and then you're not hanging out with your friends in person like previous generations did.
Look,
so
I deleted
really
social media.
Out.
Yeah, I deleted Instagram a week and a half ago. I feel infinitely better. So it's not just kids. I'll grant you that, but at the same time, you said that belief in institutions has gone away, right? In family, sort of celebration of families gone away, church has gone away, various organizations have been sort of torn down, but also norms have been torn down, right? In terms of patriotism is no longer celebrated. It's no longer celebrated. What it means to be an American is something we can all agree on. And there's an interesting book about the revenge of the populist normies. It's a piece that just came out in the Free Press, that there's been some very influential, and we'll call them elites, and sort of thought leaders, especially ones that have been on the left, that have torn down and attacked so many of those norms that held us all together.
Right. So we have more individualism, more focus on the self, less on social rules. That grows naturally out of technology. It has some big upsides like equality. It also has some enormous downsides like disconnection, not as much respect for institutions. Nobody knows what the rules are anymore, that we don't have something to believe in anymore. So then it's all up to the self. And that is not a good formula for mental health and optimism.
Fair enough on all points. It's one of the most fascinating conversations we've had in a long time. This is great. So I'm gonna take a little more time here. One of the things we put up was people who believe in socialism versus capitalism, right? And patriotism. If you got only a third of Gen Z believing in patriotism and a plurality of them believing in socialism, that doesn't bode well. Never mind they're responsible for all of our Medicare and Social Security at some point, earning that money. But that part aside, I think you've earned the right in your analysis to give us a prescription for how to get back to an America that we love and a group of young people that are inspired for America.
Yeah. And these polls are not alone. There's other polls showing that young people, compared to previous generations, are more likely to say America is an unfair society, that we need to basically start over with government. So we've got our work cut out for us trying to give Gen Z some purpose and some hope. I do think that getting phones out of schools and making sure that we don't have young children and young teens on social media, maybe raising the age to 16, then maybe they'll start hanging out with each other more in person and be a lot less depressed and pessimistic.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.